Well, good morning and welcome once again to our home in Bromley Common as we continue our journey towards Easter. This week I was reading a Facebook post from a delightful group called The Holy Disorder of Dancing Monks. Well, this group explores Christian faith and worship, looking at old monastic traditions. And this particular post was looking at Irish sayings, and one really stood out to me. It said, "Under the shelter of each other, people survive." I'll say that again. Under the shelter of each other, people survive. When we look back into Irish history, we can see how important it was for people to support each other through times of hardship. Richard alluded a couple of days ago to the parable of the mustard seed and how the roots grow underneath. We don't see what's happening, but God causes the roots to grow. Well, today we're going to look at another parable about the seed. Jesus talks about the kingdom of God being like a mustard seed, really small, and yet it grows to be a huge tree in which all the birds of the air can find shelter. So often we might think, oh, I can be a big tree. I want to be big, strong, powerful. But perhaps we're missing the point there. What is the purpose of a tree? The trees in the Garden of Eden were planted to provide fruit. The trees in Revelation, we read about trees being either side of the river, and they provide leaves for the healing of the nations. We also know that trees put down roots. If you've seen, I don't know if you saw the program Britain from Below, but they showed at the last bit, they showed a view of the roots of a tree from underneath, and the roots went as broad and as deep as the tree was on the top of the soil. It was really quite amazing. The roots provide hold in the soil. They soak up the moisture. Don't know if you remember when Richard spoke about the wood wide web. No, the wood wide web. It's the fungal network, I've got to read this, mycorrhizal network, where nutrients and water are shared between individual trees. Trees work together in order to survive. The roots of the trees are important in soil preservation. Where trees have been felled, there is a greater increase in landslides, but also soil erosion, acidity in the soil. The great fields of grain that were cleared in America have gradually become less and less fertile because they don't hold the nutrients or the soil anymore. Trees were felled. We all know what it's like in the summer to sit under the shade of a tree. No wonder the leaves of the trees bring healing. But they do more than that. The leaves of trees soak up carbon. Part of the problem of the deforestation of the rainforest in the Amazon is that carbon is no longer able to be soaked up, and that contributes to global warming. And then there are the flowers. Our magnolia has now come into full bloom, and it looks absolutely wonderful with this little sort of stars of pink. All our neighbours say how often they look forward to the magnolia flowering. It brings joy. But another flower on a tree that brings joy is the catkin. We look at the catkins hanging down and we think, oh, spring is nearly here. But those are the male flowers. The female flowers are tiny, tiny little dots of red, absolutely intricate and beautiful. So, a purpose of a tree is not just to provide shade, but roots, fruits, and flowers. The whole tree is important. An oak tree supports a staggering 2,300 different species, from mammals to insects, fungi, microorganisms, all are reliant. A tree isn't big just for the sake of it. A tree is there to bring life, to support life. In biblical times, birds were often seen as a nuisance. After all, they ate all the seed, or if they were carrion, they would eat dead animals, so they were regarded as unclean. And yet Jesus says that it's the birds of the air, those things that people regarded as being worthless, that are given refuge and given a home in the great big tree. So those hearing the story might have thought, oh, the kingdom of God is going to be like a big tree looking powerful. But actually, Jesus is saying the kingdom of God is somewhere that gives shelter to the most vulnerable. It helps others survive. As we come out of lockdown slowly, we've perhaps realised how important it is that we work together. We've known that we have to all stay at home in order to reduce the R rate. We give each other shelter by not mixing. We wear masks and we do things together. And by doing so, we've enabled people to survive. So it goes back to that Irish saying, under the shelter of each other, people survive. The mustard seed might be very small. We might feel ourselves to be very small and insignificant. And yet, God brings growth, and we grow for a purpose, to give shelter to the weak and the vulnerable. So be blessed. We look forward to Palm Sunday and the story of Jesus coming into Jerusalem, and we'll see what Richard has to say tomorrow. Be blessed. Bye-bye. There you go.